Ryan Hale had been living on Orlith 9 for nearly 6 months now, and some days it still felt as though he was the only human in the universe. The colony he had volunteered for was a small outpost on a remote planet at the edge of the star system. Most days were quiet, too quiet. The wind whipped strange, pale dust across the ground, and the distant, jagged mountains shimmered faintly under the twin suns. He had learned to recognize the patterns in the winds, the soft tremors under the soil, and even the faint hums of alien life that the settlement's scanners often missed. But today he was too tired to pay much attention. After repairing a damaged energy panel in his small habitat dome, Ryan felt the deep hunger that always followed a long day of physical work. His rations were simple: nutrient bars, dried fruits, and some preserved protein, but they were enough to keep him going. He opened the small storage unit near the door, took out a tray of food, and sighed. The day had been long, and it would be even longer if he had to cook anything complicated. So, out of habit more than anything, he placed some of the food just outside the door, a small pile on a clean plate. Sometimes he left it for stray creatures, if any came this far from the wild zones. It was a gesture of goodwill, a small human habit that reminded him he was still connected to life, even on a planet that felt empty. Ryan had only stepped back inside to wash his hands when a faint rustling outside caught his attention. He froze. The colony was quiet, too quiet for rustling. He leaned out the doorway cautiously, scanning the dimming landscape. Then he saw her. She emerged from the shadows like a whisper. At first he thought he was imagining it. A tall, slender figure stepped into the pale glow of his doorway, and for a moment neither moved. Then the figure came closer, graceful but cautious. Her skin shimmered faintly with bioluminescent markings that pulsed in soft blues and greens. Her eyes were large and luminous, reflecting both curiosity and something else, an intelligence that made Ryan's heart race. He had read about alien life forms in training manuals and textbooks, but nothing truly prepared him for the real thing. Nothing. He stepped back, unsure what to do. Hello," he said, voice trembling more than he wanted. The alien tilted her head, studying him. There was no sound from her, no voice, only the subtle flicker of her glowing patterns. Then she slowly reached toward the plate of food, touching it lightly with delicate fingers. The faint glow in her markings changed, shifting to a soft green. Ryan felt a strange warmth in that color, like an emotion he almost recognized. Gratitude. He swallowed hard, trying to remind himself that she wasn't a threat. "You want it?" he asked, keeping his tone gentle. She didn't answer in words, but she did take a small portion of the food and lifted it toward her mouth. Ryan noticed her movements were careful, almost ritualistic, as if she had never eaten anything like this before. Then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, she withdrew, retreating a few steps into the shadow beyond his door. Her gaze remained fixed on him, curious and cautious. Ryan wanted to call her back to ask questions, but he didn't want to scare her. Instead, he stepped outside a little, leaving the door open behind him. The wind whispered across the landscape, carrying the faint smell of alien flora, something sweet and sharp that made the air feel alive. The alien woman, whoever she was, mirrored his movement. Slowly, she approached again, stopping just at the edge of the light. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her gestures were expressive enough. When she held her hand out, palm upward, it was as if she were asking for trust. Ryan nodded, carefully setting another portion of food a short distance away from him. She moved closer, taking it without hesitation this time. He studied her as she ate. Her movements were fluid and careful, almost like a dance. Ryan could see the faint pulse of her glowing markings across her arms and neck, shifting with every small motion. He realized she wasn't just curious, she was intelligent. The way she observed him, the way she reacted to simple gestures, this was no wild animal. She understood enough to interact meaningfully, and somehow that filled him with both excitement and caution. Where are you from?" he asked softly. Her response was subtle. She pointed first to herself, then drew a series of shapes in the air with her fingers, patterns that shimmered faintly in the light of the twin suns. Ryan frowned. He didn't recognize them, but her attempt to communicate fascinated him. He picked up a stick nearby and tried drawing shapes on the ground, simple symbols, a circle, a line, an arrow. She watched, then mimicked him, drawing her own shapes in the dust. It was slow, painstaking communication, but it was working. She pointed toward the horizon, to a distant ridge of jagged mountains, then back to herself, and finally toward Ryan. Ryan realized she was trying to show him something, or perhaps asking for help. His curiosity outweighed his caution. He decided he had to learn more. Okay," he said, his voice low. I'll help you, but you have to trust me. He stepped back into his habitat to grab his survival pack, a portable scanner, water supply, a few energy rations, and a small multi-tool. When he returned outside, she had not moved, as if she was waiting for him to lead the way. "All right," he said. "Let's go see what's out there." Her glow was subtle now, a quiet blue that pulsed with her breathing. Ryan kept his scanner pointed ahead, alert for anything dangerous. Orlith 9 was known for its unpredictable wildlife, creatures that could shift shape, camouflage in plain sight, or strike without warning. Yet beside this being, he felt a strange sense of reassurance. There was intelligence here, something that could anticipate danger, maybe even help him survive. As they walked, Ryan spoke softly, narrating everything around them. "See that ridge?" he said. "Not far from here, some high cliffs. Might be good for shelter if the weather turns." The alien's glowing patterns shifted slightly at the mention of cliffs. Perhaps she understood, perhaps she didn't, but he felt that connection, a silent dialogue between two species trying to understand each other. They reached the first set of rocky outcrops, jagged stones casting long shadows as the suns dipped lower in the sky. Ryan crouched beside a small pool of liquid that reflected the last rays of light. "Drink," he said, holding out a portable water container. The alien studied it, sniffed it, and touched the water with a finger. The glow on her skin changed again, curiosity mixed with caution. Finally, she drank carefully, and Ryan allowed himself a small smile. For a while, they sat together in quiet observation. Ryan noticed tiny life forms, crawling creatures with translucent shells that moved in patterned lines, and the faint hum of energy beneath the surface of the soil. The alien's eyes followed each movement, tracking every detail, absorbing the environment. Ryan felt a pang of realization. This being was learning, studying just as much as he was. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the quiet. A low, resonating hum came from beyond the cliffs. Ryan tensed, scanning the horizon. It wasn't natural, the vibrations were too rhythmic, too controlled. The alien woman stiffened beside him, her glow turning a soft, warning red. Ryan realized that whatever it was, it had noticed them, or at least she had noticed it. He put a hand up in a gesture of caution. The alien mirrored him, crouching slightly, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The hum grew louder and the vibrations traveled through the ground, faint but unmistakable. Ryan's mind raced. Was it a predator, a machine, another alien species? Before he could decide, she moved swiftly, motioning for him to follow. Ryan hesitated only for a moment, then picked up his pack and followed her. Her movements were sure, confident, almost guided by intuition. Ryan realized that she was not only intelligent but experienced in navigating dangerous terrain. As they moved deeper into the rocky cliffs, Ryan felt a mix of excitement and unease. This encounter, this strange alien woman, had turned a normal, lonely evening into something extraordinary. He had no idea what lay ahead, but for the first time in months he felt a spark of true adventure. 5 minutes earlier, he had simply left food at his door. Now he was walking beside a being from another world, learning to communicate without words and venturing into unknown territory. Ryan could feel the beginnings of a bond forming, fragile but real. And as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting Orlith 9 in deep shades of purple and gold, he realized that his life would never be the same again. The alien woman glanced at him once, her glowing markings flickering like soft lightning. Ryan smiled back, a silent promise passing between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Ryan and the alien woman, whom he had begun to think of as Lyra, moved carefully through the rocky cliffs. The hum from the horizon had faded, but Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every so often, he glanced at her. Her glowing markings had shifted back to a calm blue, and she moved with a quiet grace that was almost hypnotic. She didn't speak, and he still didn't know if she could, but her gestures were becoming easier to understand with each passing moment. Ryan slowed his pace and held up his hand. "We need to be careful," he said softly. "I don't know what's out here, but I don't want to get caught off guard." He realized she had probably noticed the hum long before he did. After a short while, they came across a narrow canyon filled with glowing moss that coated the walls. The soft light illuminated alien symbols etched into the rocks, spirals and lines that Ryan had never seen before. He knelt down to inspect them, taking out his scanner. The readings were strange, biological, yet structured almost like a language. Lyra crouched beside him, her eyes wide and curious. She touched one of the symbols gently, and Ryan watched as her glow flickered across the shapes, almost as if she were reading them. He felt a thrill run through him. You understand something about this?" he asked quietly. She nodded, tilting her head slightly and pointing toward a set of cliffs ahead, then back at herself. It was clear she was leading him somewhere. They followed her carefully, climbing up jagged stones and navigating narrow ledges. Ryan noticed that Lyra moved with a kind of effortless balance that humans could rarely match. Every step she took seemed calculated, precise, like she had been trained for this terrain. He realized that she was not only intelligent, but also skilled in survival. After some time, they reached a plateau overlooking a wide valley below. The valley floor was dotted with shimmering pools of liquid that reflected the fading light. Strange plants swayed gently in the wind, their translucent leaves glowing faintly. Ryan took a deep breath. "It's beautiful," he said softly. Lyra's markings pulsed in response, a soft green, and she turned to face him, almost as if acknowledging his words. Ryan unpacked a small energy bar and offered it to her. She accepted it carefully, nibbling slowly, her movements precise. It was clear she wasn't used to the taste, but she seemed to enjoy it nonetheless. Ryan smiled, feeling a connection forming between them. He knew they couldn't stay here long. Night on Orlith 9 could be dangerous, and he had no idea what creatures might come out after dark. "We should find shelter," he said. Do you have a place to go?" She pointed toward a distant ridge, then back at herself, and finally traced a symbol in the air that looked like a circle with a dot in the center. Ryan frowned, trying to interpret it. It looked like a location or a marker. "You want me to take you there?" he asked. She nodded. Ryan packed up his gear and began moving toward the ridge. Lyra followed closely, her movements silent and fluid. As they walked, Ryan noticed the subtle ways in which she observed the environment, every shadow, every sound, every shift in the wind. He realized she was learning from him even as he was learning from her. They reached the base of the ridge as the first stars began to appear in the sky. The alien terrain seemed to shift in the dim light, and Ryan kept a close eye on his scanner. He detected faint energy readings ahead, unlike anything he had seen before. "Something's here," he whispered. Lyra's glow flickered slightly, and she crouched low, signaling him to do the same. They moved cautiously, following the energy readings. Soon, they came across a small structure partially hidden among rocks. It looked ancient, built with materials that were clearly not natural. Strange markings covered its surface, glowing faintly in the dark. Ryan felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This is incredible," he said softly. Lyra's glow pulsed in a brighter shade of blue, almost as if she were proud. Ryan approached carefully, scanning the structure with his portable device. The readings indicated some kind of energy source inside, faint but active. "Looks like someone or something was here recently," he said. Lyra moved closer to the entrance, peering inside. Ryan could see the faint outline of shapes within, shadows that shifted in the dim glow. Suddenly, a noise came from within the structure, a soft, mechanical click followed by a faint hum. Ryan froze. "Stay back," he whispered. Lyra didn't move, but her glow shifted to a soft yellow, a warning signal he was starting to understand. The entrance to the structure slowly opened, revealing a small chamber. Inside, there were remnants of technology, small devices, panels with strange symbols, and containers that looked like they could store food or energy. Ryan realized this must have been some kind of outpost or shelter, abandoned long ago. Lyra stepped inside cautiously, her glowing markings lighting the interior. She reached out to one of the panels and it flickered to life. Strange holographic images appeared, showing star systems and symbols he couldn't decipher. Ryan stared in amazement. "Incredible, it's a map," he whispered. Lyra's glow pulsed brighter and she traced a route on the hologram. Ryan studied the route. It seemed to lead to a location far across the valley, deeper into the alien terrain. He realized that this was probably why she had come here. You want to go there," he said. She nodded, and for the first time, Ryan felt a sense of purpose beyond simple curiosity. They spent the next few hours exploring the shelter, finding useful supplies, energy packs, water filtration devices, and a few tools. Ryan packed what he could carry, and Lyra seemed to understand the importance of conserving resources. By the time they were ready to leave, the sky had darkened completely, and the twin moons of Orlith 9 cast a pale light over the landscape. As they stepped outside, Ryan felt a shiver of excitement. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew that he was not alone. Lyra was with him, and together they had a chance to face whatever dangers the night might bring. They moved quietly through the shadows, following the route indicated by the holographic map. Ryan kept a close watch on the terrain, using his scanner to detect any movement. Occasionally, he would glance at Lyra, who seemed perfectly at ease, her glowing markings adjusting to the darkness. It was clear she had a natural ability to navigate this environment, and Ryan felt a mixture of admiration and relief. After some time, they reached the edge of a dense forest of tall, translucent plants. The leaves glowed faintly, creating a soft, eerie light. Ryan could hear the faint rustling of creatures moving among the plants, but none approached them. He signaled to Lyra to move slowly, and they slipped through the forest like shadows, careful not to make a sound. Suddenly, a larger shape moved in the distance, an animal or perhaps something more intelligent. Ryan's heart raced. He adjusted his scanner, trying to identify it. The reading was unusual, part biological, part mechanical. He realized that Orlith 9 had more surprises in store than he had imagined. Lyra noticed it too. She crouched low and made a series of gestures, pointing toward the shape and then back at Ryan. He understood immediately. Stay calm, observe, and be ready. The creature moved closer, but instead of attacking, it paused, its sensors glowing faintly as it studied them. Ryan held his breath. The creature seemed to sense that they meant no harm, then turned and disappeared into the forest. Ryan exhaled slowly, relief flooding through him. He looked at Lyra, who had turned her head toward him, her glow pulsing in a soft green. He smiled, feeling the bond between them strengthen with every shared experience. They continued through the forest, moving carefully and learning from each other. Ryan realized that Lyra's presence was teaching him more than he could have imagined, about the planet, about survival, and about the value of trust between species. By the time they reached the location indicated on the holographic map, the first hints of dawn were appearing on the horizon. They stood on a high ridge overlooking a wide valley filled with strange, shimmering formations. Ryan felt a sense of awe. The valley was unlike anything he had seen, a mixture of natural beauty and alien technology, as if the planet itself had been shaped by both nature and intelligence. Lyra stepped forward, her glow brightening in excitement. She gestured toward a structure in the distance, partially hidden among the formations. Ryan nodded. This was their destination, and he felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. He knew that whatever awaited them in that structure, their journey together was only beginning. The bond formed in the cliffs and the forest had created trust, and that trust would be their greatest asset in the challenges ahead. Together, they moved toward the valley, ready to face whatever mysteries Orlith 9 had in store. Ryan felt a surge of hope and determination. For the first time since arriving on this remote planet, he felt that he was exactly where he was meant to be, and that the presence of Lyra, the alien woman who had appeared at his door, had changed everything. Ryan and Lyra stood at the edge of the valley, staring down at the shimmering formations that stretched as far as the eye could see. The early light of Orlith 9 twin suns cast long shadows across the terrain, and the strange plants and rocks glimmered like crystals. Ryan had seen alien landscapes before, but this one was different, alive, almost humming with energy. He could feel it beneath his feet, a vibration so faint that it was easy to miss if he wasn't paying attention. Lyra's glowing markings pulsed softly, and she moved with careful confidence, leading the way down the slope into the valley. Ryan followed closely, gripping his scanner and adjusting his pack. He had learned to trust her instincts. She knew the land better than he ever could, and her movements suggested a combination of skill and intelligence that humans rarely possessed in such wild terrain. As they entered the valley, the formations grew taller, resembling jagged towers of stone and crystal. Some seemed natural, shaped by time and wind, while others had straight edges, almost like structures made intentionally. Ryan wondered if Lyra's people had once been here or if some other intelligent species had altered the planet long ago. He made a mental note to ask her once he had a better way to communicate. They moved slowly, careful not to disturb the delicate ecosystem. Small creatures scurried through the glowing plants, and Ryan caught glimpses of shimmering wings or translucent shells. The creatures didn't approach, but their presence made him feel as if they were being watched. Lyra's glow shifted, a soft blue with hints of yellow, a warning or perhaps a signal that she sensed the same thing. After a while, they reached a narrow passage between two massive formations. Ryan paused, scanning the area. The scanner picked up faint energy signatures ahead, subtle but definitely there. He frowned. "Something's here," he whispered, more to himself than to Lyra. She crouched low and gestured for him to follow her lead. Her movements were fluid, almost like a predator stalking prey, but her glow remained calm. They crept through the passage, the ground uneven beneath their feet. Tiny crystal fragments crunched softly as they stepped, but neither spoke. Ryan realized that silence had become their language. Every gesture, every pulse of light on Lyra's skin communicated more than words ever could. He felt a connection forming, built on trust, patience, and shared danger. As they emerged from the passage, the valley opened up into a wide plain. Ryan's eyes widened. The plain was dotted with enormous structures, tall, smooth towers that glimmered with faint energy. Some of the towers pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Others had panels or markings that resembled the symbols in the shelter they had discovered earlier. Ryan realized this was more than a valley. It was a settlement, or at least the remains of one, abandoned and silent. Lyra stopped and pointed to one of the towers, then back at herself, and finally toward Ryan. He interpreted the gesture as a request. She wanted him to follow her to the structure. He nodded, tightening his grip on the scanner. The closer they approached, the more energy signatures they could detect. Some were faint, likely residual power, while others seemed active, almost alive. They reached the base of the first tower. Ryan could see faint traces of movement, small footprints or marks in the soil, too regular to be natural. He crouched to inspect them. "Someone's been here," he murmured. Lyra's glow shifted, a soft green, and she moved closer to him, as if confirming his observation. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the valley, a low, vibrating hum, much like the one Ryan had heard earlier. This time it was closer and more intense. He stiffened, scanning the horizon. Shapes moved between the towers, too fast and too fluid to be ordinary wildlife. He realized they were not alone. Lyra tensed beside him, her glow shifting to a soft red. Ryan understood immediately, danger. He gestured for her to stay low, and together they crouched behind a low crystal formation. The shapes moved closer, and Ryan could make out features, tall, spindly figures with sharp limbs and glowing eyes. Predators, or perhaps scavengers, intelligent and dangerous. Ryan's heart pounded. He had faced dangerous creatures before, but never like this, organized, hunting, and clearly aware of his presence. He adjusted his scanner, trying to find a pattern in their movement. Lyra watched him, then made a series of quick gestures. He realized she was suggesting a plan: stay hidden, observe, and wait for the right moment. They remained crouched for several tense minutes, the creatures moving methodically through the plain. Ryan noticed something remarkable. Lyra wasn't just hiding. She was analyzing their behavior, predicting their movements, and signaling him subtly. Her intelligence complemented his own, and together they had a better chance of survival than either would alone. Finally, the creatures moved past their position. Ryan exhaled slowly. "Okay, now," he whispered. Lyra's glow shifted back to calm blue, and she led him along a narrow path that avoided detection. The valley stretched endlessly, but their combined caution allowed them to move through it without being seen. As they approached another tower, Ryan noticed a faint entrance partially concealed by rock formations. He motioned for Lyra to go first. She moved with confidence, slipping inside the tower. The interior was dark but surprisingly intact. Panels and devices lined the walls, glowing faintly with residual energy. Ryan's scanner confirmed it. Some systems were still active, barely, but enough to be useful. Lyra gestured for him to follow, then pointed to a central chamber. Inside, a holographic map flickered to life, showing the surrounding valley and additional locations marked with symbols. Ryan's eyes widened. This was more than a map. It was a guide, possibly leading to other shelters or sources of energy in the area. He studied the hologram carefully. Some locations were marked with symbols he didn't recognize, while others had faint energy readings similar to what they had detected earlier. Ryan realized that Lyra's people, or whoever had built this place, had mapped the valley extensively. He traced a route on the hologram with his finger, noting the safest path through the plain. Lyra mirrored his action, tracing a similar path with her glowing finger-like appendage. Ryan smiled. They were communicating again without words, understanding each other's intent. He felt a surge of respect for her. Humans were resourceful, yes, but she had a way of adapting that made them even stronger together. After a short rest, they decided to move on. Ryan packed the small supplies he could carry, including a few energy packs from the tower. Lyra adjusted her own supplies, conserving resources and making sure they had enough for the journey ahead. They exited the tower cautiously, scanning the valley for any signs of danger. As they moved, Ryan noticed the subtle ways in which Lyra adapted to the environment. She seemed to sense changes in wind direction, vibrations in the ground, and even faint traces of life that were invisible to him. He realized that she had survived in this harsh world for a reason. Her instincts and intelligence were finely tuned. He felt a deep admiration for her abilities and a sense of gratitude that she had chosen to trust him. Suddenly, a shadow fell across their path. Ryan froze. Lyra's glow shifted to a soft yellow, a warning signal. Ahead, a creature emerged from behind a rock formation, a large, multi-limbed predator with translucent skin and glowing eyes. It moved with startling speed, its limbs bending in ways that seemed impossible. Ryan's heart raced. He had to act fast. He grabbed a small flare from his pack and activated it, tossing it to the side. The bright light startled the predator, causing it to hesitate. Lyra moved beside him, her markings pulsing as she made a quick gesture. Ryan understood immediately. She was suggesting a distraction. He picked up a rock and threw it in the opposite direction. The predator turned, chasing the movement, and Ryan and Lyra slipped past it, moving quickly but quietly through the plain. After several tense minutes, they found a small cluster of formations that offered shelter. They crouched behind the rocks, catching their breath. Ryan's hands trembled slightly from the adrenaline. He looked at Lyra, who had settled beside him, her glow softening to a calm blue. He realized that, despite the danger, they had survived together. Their cooperation had saved them, and he felt a deep sense of connection. As they rested, Ryan reflected on the journey so far. Lyra was unlike anything he had ever encountered, intelligent, resourceful, and adaptable. She had not only survived on this harsh planet, but had also taught him to see the land differently, to recognize patterns and dangers he might have missed. He realized that humans were clever, yes, but together with her abilities, they formed a team that could overcome almost any challenge. By the time the twin suns were high in the sky, they had crossed much of the valley. Ryan felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had faced danger, explored unknown terrain, and learned to communicate with a being from another world. And through it all, Lyra had remained calm, intelligent, and remarkably skilled. They paused near a small, glowing stream. Ryan knelt to drink, and Lyra did the same, dipping her hands into the water and letting it drip onto her glowing skin. Ryan watched her, fascinated. She was learning, adapting, surviving, and somehow he felt that she was also teaching him. After a short rest, they continued their journey, moving toward the next marked location on the holographic map. Ryan knew that more dangers awaited them, but he felt ready. With Lyra by his side, he could face anything. Together, they would uncover the secrets of Orlith 9, survive its challenges, and perhaps discover something even greater: trust, friendship, and the extraordinary potential of humans and aliens working together. Ryan and Lyra had been traveling through the valley for what felt like hours. The terrain was uneven and unpredictable, with jagged rock formations, glowing plants, and strange pools of liquid that reflected the twin suns above. Ryan's muscles ached, and his pack felt heavier with each step, but he refused to slow down. Lyra moved beside him with quiet confidence, her glowing markings flickering gently as she scanned the environment for threats. He had learned to rely on her instincts almost as much as his own, and together they made their way cautiously toward the next location indicated on the holographic map. As they climbed over a ridge, Ryan finally caught sight of the structure they had been moving toward. It was partially hidden among tall, crystalline formations, but he could see the faint outline of its walls and the soft glow of energy panels that were still active. His heart leapt. This was it, the hidden site that Lyra had been leading him to. Lyra paused and gestured for him to wait. Her glow shifted to a soft yellow, a subtle warning. Ryan crouched low, scanning the surrounding area. His scanner picked up faint movements, too small to be human but deliberate and calculated. He realized immediately that they were not alone. There were other beings here, likely scavengers or predators, and they had noticed movement in the valley. He whispered to Lyra, "We need a plan. If they see us, it could be dangerous." She nodded and made a series of gestures, pointing to a narrow path along the edge of the structure that appeared to be less exposed. Ryan understood. They would approach carefully, using the natural cover of the terrain. They moved silently, crouching behind rocks and formations, keeping low to avoid detection. The faint hum of energy from the structure grew louder as they approached, and Ryan could feel a strange vibration in the ground. It was almost like the planet itself was alive, responding to their presence. He glanced at Lyra. She was alert, every muscle tense, her glowing markings pulsing with intensity. As they reached the base of the structure, Ryan could make out more details. It was not just a shelter. It appeared to be a small facility, perhaps once used by humans or another intelligent species. Panels lined the walls, some still active, others dark and broken. There were containers scattered around and the remnants of technology that seemed advanced beyond anything Ryan had encountered before. Suddenly, a shadow moved along the edge of the structure. Ryan froze. Lyra's glow shifted to a warning red. The scavengers had discovered them. They were tall, thin creatures with glowing eyes and sharp limbs moving with incredible speed. Ryan knew that direct confrontation would be risky. He whispered, "We need to distract them and get inside." She gestured for Ryan to follow her instructions, and he understood. Together, they created a diversion. Ryan grabbed a small rock and tossed it across the open ground. The scavengers turned toward the sound, their glowing eyes scanning for movement. At the same time, Lyra activated a faint energy pulse from one of the devices she carried, sending a soft flare across the area. The combination worked. The scavengers hesitated, distracted long enough for Ryan and Lyra to slip inside the structure. Once inside, Ryan exhaled, letting the tension drain from his body. Lyra's glow shifted back to calm blue, and she moved to the central chamber where a holographic map flickered to life. Ryan studied it carefully. The map showed the valley, the surrounding structures, and several points of interest marked with symbols he couldn't decipher. One location, in particular, caught his attention: a small, crashed vessel partially hidden behind rock formations on the far side of the valley. Lyra noticed his focus and made a series of gestures, pointing to the vessel and then at herself. Ryan realized she was explaining her mission. She was here to investigate the crash, to study the humans or other beings that had been involved, and possibly to ensure their safety. She had been searching for survivors or remnants of her people, and Ryan now understood the importance of their journey together. They prepared to leave the structure and move toward the crash site. Ryan grabbed his pack and double-checked his scanner. Lyra adjusted her supplies, ensuring they had enough energy and water for the trek. They stepped outside cautiously, scanning the valley for any sign of the scavengers. The creatures were still nearby, but their attention seemed divided. Ryan and Lyra moved quickly but carefully, using the terrain for cover. They crouched behind formations, slipped through narrow gaps, and avoided open ground whenever possible. The closer they got to the crash site, the more Ryan could feel the energy readings increasing. Whatever had crashed here had left behind a residual power, faint but significant enough to attract attention. As they approached the vessel, Ryan could see its shape more clearly. It was small but clearly designed for space travel, its hull damaged and scorched. Panels were missing and the interior appeared exposed to the elements. Ryan's heart raced. This could be a human vessel, or it could be something older, something that had been here for decades. Lyra led him around to a side entrance where they crouched behind a fallen panel to observe. Ryan scanned the interior with his portable device, detecting faint life signs. There were survivors, or at least beings that had recently been here. He realized they were not alone and that the scavengers might be planning to investigate the vessel as well. Ryan whispered, "We need to move fast. If the scavengers find them first, it could be bad." Lyra nodded and made a series of gestures, indicating a safe path to enter the vessel. They moved carefully, avoiding debris and broken panels until they reached the interior. Inside, Ryan's eyes widened. The vessel was small but functional, with controls, storage compartments, and signs of recent activity. There were containers of supplies, some of which still seemed usable. Lyra moved quickly, scanning the area and activating a few panels. A holographic projection appeared, showing a star system and a series of coordinates. Ryan realized this could be a navigation system, possibly pointing to other locations of interest. As they explored, a sound echoed from the far end of the vessel, a soft, metallic clank. Ryan froze. Lyra's glow shifted to a warning red. They moved quietly toward the source of the sound, discovering a small group of survivors huddled together. They were humanoid but clearly not human, their skin marked with faint bioluminescent patterns. They looked weak and frightened. Ryan stepped forward slowly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We're here to help," he said softly. Lyra mirrored his actions, her glow calming the group. The survivors relaxed slightly, recognizing that Ryan and Lyra were not a threat. They helped the survivors gather supplies and move to a safer part of the vessel. Ryan noticed the fear in their eyes, but also a spark of hope. They had been stranded here for days, maybe longer, and Ryan's presence offered a lifeline. Lyra communicated with them through gestures, explaining that they would help guide them to safety. Suddenly, the scavengers returned, moving swiftly across the valley. Ryan and Lyra acted quickly, setting up makeshift barriers and using the environment to create obstacles. They activated a few of the vessel's systems, generating lights and sounds that confused the scavengers. The creatures hesitated, giving Ryan and Lyra enough time to help the survivors move toward cover. Ryan realized the stakes were higher than ever. They were not just exploring or surviving, they were protecting lives. And in this moment, the value of human ingenuity and courage became clear. Using simple tools, quick thinking, and strategic planning, he and Lyra were able to outmaneuver the scavengers, guiding the survivors to a safer part of the valley. After the immediate danger had passed, Ryan took a moment to catch his breath. Lyra's glow shifted back to calm blue, and she moved beside him. Ryan smiled faintly. They had survived the confrontation, but he knew the scavengers would return. They needed a longer-term plan. Lyra gestured to the survivors, then to Ryan, and finally back toward the structure they had explored earlier. He understood. They would regroup, rest, and prepare for the next challenge. The bond between them had grown stronger through the danger, built on trust, courage, and the shared goal of helping those in need. Ryan reflected on the journey so far. He had learned that survival on Orlith 9 required more than strength. It required intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. Humans were clever, yes, but when paired with someone like Lyra, their abilities multiplied. Together, they could face challenges that neither could handle alone. As they moved the survivors to the relative safety of the structure, Ryan noticed Lyra pausing occasionally, scanning the horizon. She was alert, prepared for any new threat. Ryan admired her focus and skill, recognizing that her presence had changed everything. He was no longer alone, and together they were capable of extraordinary things. By the time they had secured the survivors and rested briefly, the valley was bathed in the light of Orlith 9 twin moons. The faint glow of the planet's surface reflected off the crystalline formations, creating an otherworldly landscape that was both beautiful and dangerous. Ryan felt a sense of accomplishment, but he also knew this was only the beginning. Lyra moved beside him, her glow a gentle blue, and gestured toward the holographic map. Ryan understood immediately. Their journey was far from over. There were more locations to explore, more secrets to uncover, and more challenges to face. But for the first time, he felt truly confident. With Lyra's guidance, his own ingenuity, and the cooperation of the survivors, they had a real chance to succeed. Ryan glanced at the survivors, who were beginning to regain their strength. He realized that the simple act of leaving food at his door had set all of this into motion. A chance encounter had led to trust, adventure, and discovery. And now, standing in the heart of an alien valley, he understood that the true journey was just beginning. Together, Ryan, Lyra, and the survivors prepared to face whatever dangers Orlith 9 still had in store, ready to explore the unknown and uncover the mysteries hidden in the shimmering valley. The bond they had forged in the cliffs, forests, and valley was unbreakable, built on courage, intelligence, and the shared determination to survive and thrive. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the valley, the scavengers watched, waiting for their next move. Ryan woke to the faint glow of Orlith 9 twin suns reflecting off the crystalline formations surrounding the valley. The survivors were quietly moving about, checking their supplies and tending to minor injuries. Lyra sat beside him, her glowing markings pulsing softly, signaling calm and focus. Ryan stretched, feeling the ache in his muscles from the previous day's journey, but he also felt a deep sense of purpose. Today, they would face the scavengers again, and this time there was no room for hesitation. He looked out over the valley. The scavengers were already moving, their shadowy figures slipping between the towers and formations with unnerving precision. They had not given up, and Ryan knew they would attack if they detected weakness. He took a deep breath and turned to Lyra. "We need a plan," he said quietly. She responded with a series of gestures, pointing toward elevated formations where they could gain a tactical advantage. Ryan nodded. They would use the terrain, their knowledge, and their ingenuity to outsmart the creatures. The survivors gathered behind Ryan and Lyra. He gave them simple instructions, pointing out which paths to take and where to stay hidden. "Stay calm," he said. "Watch for signals, move only when we give the sign." The survivors nodded, trusting him, and he felt a surge of responsibility. These lives depended not just on courage, but on smart thinking. Ryan and Lyra moved first, climbing to a high ridge overlooking the main valley. From this vantage point, Ryan could see the scavengers moving toward the crash site where they had first found the survivors. There were at least a dozen of them, their glowing eyes scanning the valley floor. They were strong and fast, but Ryan's human mind began to piece together a strategy. He noticed the patterns in their movement. The way they hunted, paused, and reacted to stimuli. There was intelligence here, but it was predictable. He signaled to Lyra, and she understood immediately. Together, they began preparing traps and distractions using the environment and the limited technology they had salvaged from the abandoned structure. Ryan carefully positioned a series of lightweight energy nodes around the valley, designed to emit bright flashes and sounds when triggered. Lyra moved silently among the crystalline formations, using her presence to guide the survivors into safe positions. As they worked, Ryan couldn't help but marvel at Lyra's skill. She moved effortlessly through the terrain, predicting not only the scavengers' behavior but also the subtle risks posed by the planet itself. Her intelligence complemented his own problem-solving abilities perfectly. They were a team, and he realized for the first time just how extraordinary humans could be when paired with beings like Lyra. The scavengers approached, unaware of the traps awaiting them. Ryan signaled to Lyra, and she activated a small device, sending a pulse through the nearest energy node. A bright flare shot into the air, drawing several scavengers toward it. Ryan triggered another node, sending flashing lights across the valley. The creatures hesitated, confused by the sudden barrage of stimuli. Ryan's heart pounded. He could feel the adrenaline in his veins, but he remained focused. He gestured to the survivors, guiding them along a hidden path to higher ground where they would be safe. Lyra mirrored his signals, ensuring that every movement was coordinated. The scavengers, frustrated and disoriented, began to split up, chasing the flashes and sounds. Ryan and Lyra took the opportunity to move closer, positioning themselves near the central crash site. They needed to protect the survivors and prevent the scavengers from reaching the vessel. Ryan activated a makeshift barricade using metal panels and debris, while Lyra prepared a secondary trap, a faint energy pulse designed to immobilize the creatures temporarily. The first scavenger reached the barricade and collided with it, stunned by the sudden obstruction. Ryan acted quickly, throwing a lightweight but sturdy panel to block another creature that had tried to flank them. Lyra's pulse device activated, sending a soft blue wave across the ground. Several scavengers froze, their movements sluggish and confused. Ryan realized that they had the advantage. They just needed to maintain control and think ahead. Despite the chaos, Ryan felt a sense of clarity. Humans had a unique ability to adapt, to think creatively under pressure, and to work together in unpredictable situations. Lyra's presence amplified these traits, turning ingenuity into a formidable force. Together, they could outmaneuver creatures far stronger and faster than themselves. The scavengers regrouped, their glowing eyes scanning for threats. Ryan could see the frustration and intelligence in their movements. They were learning from each failed attempt. He adjusted the traps, creating new paths of confusion and misdirection. Lyra signaled him to lead one group of survivors along a hidden trail, drawing the scavengers away from the vessel. Ryan followed the plan with precision. He and Lyra moved quickly, setting off a series of flares and energy pulses that guided the scavengers into a narrow passage between two towering formations. The creatures, blinded by the lights and confused by the sounds, ran straight into a trap, a net-like energy field that temporarily immobilized them. Ryan and Lyra moved with the survivors past the trap, ensuring no one was left behind. For a moment, the valley was silent, except for the hum of the trapped scavengers. Ryan allowed himself a brief smile. The strategy had worked, but he knew the creatures were not completely defeated. They would recover, and he had to be ready for anything. Lyra's glow shifted to a soft green, signaling calm and reassurance. She had guided him through danger before, and now she stood beside him, a silent partner in the ongoing struggle. They regrouped near the vessel, helping the survivors inside. Ryan checked the status of the holographic map, tracing new routes that could lead them to safety or potential allies. Lyra moved among the survivors, communicating through gestures and glowing signals, reassuring them and explaining what to expect next. Ryan realized that the survivors were beginning to trust both of them, finding hope in their presence and leadership. As the scavengers recovered from the energy traps, Ryan and Lyra prepared for the final confrontation. They had to ensure that the creatures would not harm the survivors or the vessel. Ryan quickly analyzed the patterns in the scavengers' movements, predicting their next approach. Lyra positioned herself near the edge of the ridge, her glow signaling readiness. The creatures advanced, moving with a coordinated effort that revealed their intelligence. But Ryan had anticipated this. Using the terrain, the traps, and his quick thinking, he led them into a maze of energy pulses, flash traps, and barricades. The The scavengers stumbled, collided, and became increasingly frustrated. Their coordination faltered, and Ryan could see that the advantage had shifted. Lyra moved beside him, activating a final device salvaged from the abandoned structure. A pulse of energy spread across the valley, momentarily stunning the remaining scavengers and disrupting their sensory perception. Ryan seized the opportunity, signaling the survivors to move along a hidden path toward safety. One by one, they followed, guided by his hand signals and Lyra's glowing cues. By the time the scavengers regained their senses, the survivors were out of reach, and the creatures hesitated, sensing they had been outmaneuvered. Ryan and Lyra stood together on the ridge, calm and ready, their combined presence a testament to the power of human ingenuity and interspecies cooperation. The scavengers finally retreated, vanishing into the shadows of the valley, leaving the survivors and the vessel safe. Ryan exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. They had faced danger, outsmarted predators, and protected the lives of those stranded on the planet. Lyra's glow shifted to a soft, steady blue, a silent acknowledgement of their success. Ryan realized that their journey had not only been about survival, it had been about demonstrating the resilience, intelligence, and courage that humans were capable of, even in the most alien and hostile environments. The survivors gathered around Ryan and Lyra, expressing gratitude through gestures and faint vocalizations. Ryan smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the joy of accomplishment. They had faced a threat together, combining their strengths to overcome impossible odds. He looked at Lyra, and in that moment he understood the deeper purpose of her mission. She had come to study humans to see if their qualities were truly extraordinary, and now she had the answer before her eyes. Lyra gestured toward a holographic device, projecting a series of star systems and coordinates. Ryan realized she was offering them a chance, a connection to her people, access to knowledge and technology that could help humanity and the survivors thrive on Orlith 9. It was a reward, but more importantly, it was a recognition. Humanity had proven itself, not through strength alone, but through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to protect others. Ryan nodded, understanding the significance. This was more than a victory, it was a bridge between species, a first step toward collaboration and mutual respect. Lyra's glow brightened, a silent gesture of friendship and acknowledgement. The survivors looked on, sensing the importance of the moment, and a quiet energy of hope and possibility filled the valley. As the twin suns set once more, casting long shadows across the crystalline formations, Ryan and Lyra stood together, watching the horizon. The valley was peaceful for now, the scavengers gone and the survivors safe, but the experience had changed them both. They had discovered courage, trust, and the extraordinary potential that could emerge when humans and aliens worked together. Ryan realized that leaving food at his door that day had set off a chain of events he could never have imagined. A simple act of kindness had led to discovery, adventure, and the forging of a bond that transcended worlds. Lyra, the alien woman who had appeared unexpectedly, had not only survived with him but had shown him the value of cooperation, adaptability, and intelligence. Together, they had proven that humanity could shine even in the most alien and dangerous environments. As night fell over Orlith 9, Ryan felt a sense of calm and anticipation. The valley was still and quiet, but he knew their journey was only just beginning. Lyra's people, the knowledge they offered, and the possibilities of exploration lay ahead. And for the first time since arriving on this remote planet, Ryan felt truly at home, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him, with Lyra at his side and humanity's ingenuity as their greatest weapon. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the shimmering valley and the protective towers, Ryan sensed the faint pulse of future adventures. A world full of unknowns, but also full of promise, trust, and the extraordinary potential of humans and allies working together to explore, survive, and thrive. Orlith 9 had tested them, and they had prevailed. Humanity had left its mark, not through force, but through courage, cleverness, and compassion. And as Ryan and Lyra watched the night sky glowing softly above the crystalline valley, they knew that their story was far from over. But it had begun with a single, simple act, leaving food at the door.